Well, good evening, everybody. So tonight I am super excited because I get to perform a test that I haven't seen done anywhere, and I've wanted to do it for a very long time. So the Anker SOLIX E10 inverter is a 7.6 kilowatt inverter, but it's designed in a way that it's supposed to be able to output a maximum of 10,000 watts for 90 minutes. And I haven't seen anybody perform that test yet. Now, I've wanted to do it in the past, but I couldn't because I only had one battery. But if you look below, I was able to get my hands on a second battery. Each battery is 6,000 watt hours, which gives me a total of 12,000 watt hours to be able to run this test. So I'm going to bring you guys along as we continue this Anker SOLIX E10 testing series, I guess. And we are going to see together, can it actually perform at 10,000 watts for 90 minutes? So another reason it took me so long to be able to run this test was I had to get the battery, which I got that taken care of, but I needed a way to be able to sustain 10,000 watts. And I really couldn't do that with my home loads and have it actually be a sustained 10,000 watts. In your home, stuff's always going to be fluctuating. So I actually built a little test rig that will let me run multiple 240 volt loads like my Chargeverters and keep them constant so that we can see that full 10,000 watts. And so to do this, we're going to be disconnecting our two lines that are coming over here to the smart inlet box. And we've got a couple different options that we can use. We can use just this 50 amp receptacle, or we can use the 50 amp power strip with the 220 volt plugs as well. I'm probably just going to use the 50 amp plug. And so we're going to plug this into our main connection for this breaker panel, which will then give me two 30 amp 240 volt outlets. So first we'll turn off PV. We'll then come up and turn off the AC input. And then we're going to come over here and unplug both of these connections. We don't need the input anymore. And then we'll take our gray 50 amp plug, plug it right into here. And then we'll make our connection right there. So we're still blue here, which means that the output is still on. My 30 amp breakers are both turned off. We'll take one Chargeverter cable. This is hard with one hand. There's one and two. And so, looking at the clock, it is 8:31 right now. So we are going to start our test. Turn one on. Turn two on. And we will start our test. And I'm sorry, but it is going to get pretty noisy in here. I guess I forgot. Stop. Reset. I have to actually flip these breakers on here first. Oops. All right, there's one. And there's two. And start. So we will have to dial this in. We're currently at 8.36 kilowatts. The Chargeverter Plus is at 95 amps. So we are going to come down here and dial this up. 9.72 kilowatts, 7.3. 10.03 kilowatts. Come on. There we go. We are at 10 kilowatts, 9.99. Nope. I just got a fault. And on the screen it says load overload. And that was only 2 minutes into the test. So the system reset itself, and it's slowly working its way back up to 10,000 watts. I wonder if I need to adjust any output. I don't think there's anything to output to adjust. Now let's stop this, reset this until I can get it back up to 10,000 watts. Turn this Chargeverter back on. Start. So we are at 10,000 watts. So let's see how long this lasts. And I just heard it click over again. It is not liking this 10,000 watt output. Why not? It's supposed to be able to do it for 90 minutes. So I'm really not sure what exactly is going on, why it's not letting me get even really past 2 minutes on this 10,000 watt test. We've got 2 batteries right here, so it should be able to do it. So I'm going to lower the current so that it's like 9,900 and change, and we'll see if maybe it's above that 10,000 watts. Since we're only seeing the 2 decimal places, maybe it's as soon as it hits 10,000 watts. So maybe if we try just underneath 10,000, that'll be able to sustain it. So we'll turn our breakers back on, start our test again. And we're at 7.8, 9.87, 9.93. So let's leave it at 9.93 and just see how long this can go. So maybe that 10,000 number is a hard limit. All right, so we're around 2 minutes, 9.95 kilowatts. I really want to push it closer, but I don't know if it's going to be worth it. And the fans ramping up over here are going to pull more power. And I'm going to apologize, it's going to get loud in here. At Chargeverter Plus. All right, so we are at 9.96 kilowatts. I'm not going to mess with it because I know that this Chargeverter Plus the fans are going to ramp up another 3,000 RPM shortly, which means it's going to get even louder in here. I do want to preface that you're not going to hear any noise really coming from this because there's no fans in this other than, I think there might be one inside here that just circulates the air around a little bit. But this is all heat sink. Even on the batteries. Let's see if I can roll this out. So yeah, everything is heat sink. There's one battery. There's the other battery. So we are at just shy of 5 minutes, 9.97 kilowatts. And this is really one of those reasons why I couldn't just use my house. I don't have a car charger or an electric, I don't have an EV that I can use. The Chargeverter Plus is ramping up some more. I just want to look at these numbers real fast, 9.97. Prepare for liftoff, everybody. 9.99, 9.98. That's super close. It keeps fluctuating around, and I really don't want the stupid fans on this thing to be the reason that this jumps over. So I'm going to bump it down just a smidge. Or do I leave it? I'll leave it. I don't think the fans get any louder. What was I saying? Yeah, there's no fans on the Anker SOLIX system, so you're not going to hear that. I would love to be able to actually do a sound test just to show you that at 10,000 watts of output, you're not really hearing anything, but the Chargeverters are making that impossible. But my plan is to kind of come back every 30 minutes, make sure it's still running, and then I do want to take a thermal camera and take a look at the Anker E10 and the batteries and see how it's doing with heat dissipation. All right, so here is our thermal view. (160 to 177 degrees on the heatsink fins in the back. We're looking at 116 to 120 just up here. Our battery 90. 90. There's our cable. 100 degrees on the cable. Spin to the back here. So it definitely seems like the far side is warmer than the near side. Yeah, you can kind of feel the heat radiating off. 137 degrees on the lower battery. So there you go. Let's come over and look at this side. $120 back in here. Yeah, 178 looks like it's the high point. All right, we are at a little over 57 minutes. We can look at this, the data and see we're still at 9.96 kilowatts for output. We're at 2% battery on the entire system. If I scroll up, it says that I only have 2 minutes remaining. Now, what's interesting, if I switch to devices, go to the E10, it says that I'm discharging 9.97 kilowatts out of the battery. But then it says my AC output is 9.97 as well, which you're not going to have an exact one-to-one output, so which number's not correct? Because you should have more power coming out of the battery, because you're going to have inverter losses and everything, conversion losses. I mean, I guess it is a 400 volt battery bank, so it should be super efficient. So maybe it is a one-to-one. But either way, we've got 1% battery left, 0 remaining runtime. We're not quite at an hour yet, so it'll be interesting to see, is it going to stop once it hits 0? Or is it still looking at voltage and everything behind the scenes? But if I look at the chart here and switch to the battery and kind of open this up, it shows 10.78 kilowatts of discharge coming from the battery. And yet every place else it's showing 9.97. So the numbers don't seem to match for some reason. 10.78 there. So that could be why, one reason why we were seeing the system overloading at the very beginning, because it was pulling too much, because something's not mathing right. 1% on the battery, 59 minutes, 40 seconds. So is it going to keep going? I'm kind of hoping that it does. So we hit our hour, and we're still running at 1%. If I tap here, we can see 2 expansion batteries down at 1%. If I go back to devices, click on the individual batteries, high temperature power reduction alert on the first battery, which is interesting. 136 degrees Fahrenheit. The second one's only 113. It just went up to 114. But it says 0 runtime, so it shouldn't be running anymore. So maybe the calculation for state of charge just isn't correct. I hope so. I want that hour and a half. So just over an hour. We're looking at 118, 120 on top, 126. Closer you get to the back, gets warmer. We're still around 170. Oh, there we go. 186 from the heatsink on the back. And again, the closer you get to this side, the cooler it is. And everything just shut down. 1 minute, 2 seconds. No, 1 hour, 2 minutes. So the E10 still says there's 1% battery left. And so I did look at the Anker SOLIX E10 spec section of their website, and it does say, and I'll throw it here on screen, 10,000 watts for 90 minutes. But for some reason, we got an hour. It might end up being my batteries. I might have some state of charge drift. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to rerun the test again, but I'm going to charge the system up to 100%, and then I'm going to let it stay at 100% overnight. Because my battery bank right now is typically discharging down to 20% each day. It's charging up, but then it's discharging down to 20% each night. So maybe I'm dealing with some state of charge drift issues, which is entirely possible. So I'm going to rerun that test off camera. I will record the screen recording of what I'm doing right now. So I'll do the screen recording so then I can do a fast time lapse of it processing through. So you'll see the timestamp and you'll see the power flow. I'm going to leave everything else the same. And we will see if state of charge drift is the problem. So I'll come back with those results in a little bit. I figure while this thing is charging, I'd turn off my regular microphone so you could hear the internal fan on this unit. Just kind of sounds like a hum. But it must just be circulating air on the inside. And I know there's an internal fan because I saw a teardown video on Anker SOLIX's YouTube page. If I can find it, I'll link to it. But yeah, just thought I'd share the only noise that you'll ever hear coming from this thing. So before this next test, I wanted to get a thermal baseline so we could see exactly where the temperatures are at on the E10 without it really doing anything today. It's been in battery only mode. So you can see on the top 81 degrees across the top here. The fins in the back 88, 89 right in the center in this box. I mean, barely warm to the touch. And then the fins around 80s. Plug side right around 77, 78 degrees. And if we look at the back, obviously the center section of the inverter is the warmest again at just shy of 90 degrees. Oh, it is at 90 right there at the top. Batteries are really not doing anything, so fairly cool. But again, during our last test, I was able to get the high temps, but we never really had a baseline. So I did end up running another test, let it charge completely up from grid, let it sit that way for about 24 hours, and then I ran another full bore discharge test, discharging at 9,990-ish watts. And even with that test, I was only able to get it to run for just over an hour. I think it was probably around 1 hour and 7-ish minutes. So I reached out to my contact at Anker SOLIX and said, hey, I'm trying to perform this test where your guys' website says it should be able to sustain 10,000 watt output for 90 minutes. And they wanted logs and serial numbers and stuff like that. And so we went back and forth a little bit. And ultimately, they came back with, thank you for pointing this out. Your feedback helped us realize that our current wording might be somewhat misleading, and we truly appreciate you bringing this to our attention. During discharge, the E10 itself also experiences energy loss, which makes sense. In theory, with a 12 kilowatt hour battery and a 10 kilowatt output, the runtime would be approximately 73 minutes under perfectly efficient conditions, which is not achievable in real-world use. In practice, losses increases as current increases, meaning that the higher the output power, the greater the energy loss, which again, makes sense. You're creating that resistance when things heat up. Therefore, a 12 kilowatt hour E10 operating in turbo mode, maintaining 10 kilowatt output for 90 minutes would require that the unit be recharged at the same time, such as via generator or solar input. Without any recharging, the battery would be depleted sooner. In a non-recharging scenario, sustaining 10 kilowatt in turbo mode for 90 minutes would require at least 15 kilowatt hours of energy, even under ideal assumptions. To clarify, the 90-minute turbo mode refers to the maximum duration for which the system can maintain that peak power level rather than the standalone runtime of the E10 itself. Thank you for your valuable feedback. It helps us recognize that this point might need to be communicated more clearly. Well, when I look at the website, all it says is 10 kilowatts for 90 minutes with 2 batteries, which leads me to think that it can be 10 kilowatts for 90 minutes. And that's how long it can run, as long as you have 2 batteries. And that's kind of what I've seen across other creators as well. They reiterate the 10 kilowatt surge for 90 minutes, which is why I wanted to test this. So obviously I responded back and said, it's really misleading. And ultimately it should say it can run for 10 kilowatts for 90 minutes with 3 batteries, because you're never going to have enough power with 2 batteries to run a full 90 minutes. And they said that they were going to correct that. Their product team was going to update that to make it more clear. It has been, I think, 5 days, and I haven't seen any changes on their website as of yet. So ultimately, the wording does need to be fixed. I mean, you're still looking at 10 kilowatts of output out of a 7.6 kilowatt inverter, which is, for an hour, that's still pretty impressive. They just got to fix their wording so that they're not letting people think that it can run for 90 minutes off of 2 batteries in turbo mode. So, fun test, kind of disappointing results. Hopefully they get that wording fixed soon, but a fun test nonetheless, being able to see it get pushed past what it's supposed to run normally. So I don't normally do this, but I was looking at the analytics of my channel recently, and in the last 30 days, over 90% of the people watching my videos are not subscribers. So if you find the content that I've been putting out interesting, consider liking the video, but also subscribing to the channel. It just kind of shows that you're interested in the content that I'm putting out, and I will greatly appreciate it. I'd like to see that non-subscribe number drop down significantly. I'd like to, if nothing else, I'd like to see that, at least even number of subscribers versus non-subscribers watching the content that I put out. So thanks in advance for that. And I do have more content that I'm looking to put out with this Anker SOLIX E10 system. I do have an Anker SOLIX power dock that I'm looking to run some tests with, do some comparisons between the power dock and the smart inlet box to just kind of clarify some things that people seem to get confused. So if you're subscribed, then you'll see those videos come out in the near future. So with that, I'm gonna let y'all go. Y'all stay safe, stay cool, and we'll catch up with you later.